Hey, Donny here. Okay, so I'm going to quickly put together a crankcase for the bottom end of the 372. First thing you want to do is clean them really good. Flat surface of the crankcase, you should smooth off on a nice flat surface, glass or a good countertop. Get your surfaces all ready to go for your new gasket to seal good. Make sure your bearing pockets are in good shape, all your thread holes, your seal area, good shape. Away you go. So I have my crankshaft ready here. I've inspected, it's all good to go. The journals are all good on it. Bearing looks good. I have the new gasket and the new seals ready to go too. So what I do is I always do the flywheel side first. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna heat this up with a propane torch to the proper temperature. Then I'm just gonna drop the bearings in. The bearings have been in the freezer, so they're nice and cold, ready to go. Don't ask me what temperature I get these to, but I guess get them nice and hot so that it just drops right in. Then I put some oil on them so it cools the bearing down. So here we go. My bearings have been in the freezer. You almost see it starting to smoke a bit. There's a lot of oil on it and stuff. Okay, get our first bearing, set it in there. Look at that, falls right in. Put some oil on it right away, around the outer edge. And the balls, just let it sit there and cool down. Okay, get your other half ready to go. The PTO side, clutch side. Again, same sort of way, just gonna get it heated up. Okay, bearing. Drops right in. Okay, I didn't want to look like a fool and not have it hot enough, so I heated it up pretty good. You see the oil sizzling a bit. Okay, so while that one's cooling, we're going to get back to the ignition side one. Now the bearings in there, rotating fine, at its right depth. You just push it in all the way. This doesn't have to be set like a still where you have to have them set in a particular spot. They just go right in all the way into the case. Okay, so that one's still a little warm. We'll put our dowel pins in, which hold the gasket in place and hold the crankcase square. The gasket itself, I like to put a bit of glue on it. I use some 515 Loctite gasket maker sealant. So I'm just going to put a light coat around the whole area. You don't need to, but I do, just a habit of mine. Been doing it for years. I've Done hundreds and hundreds of these crankcases. One time I changed close to 200 of them for the factory for all of Canada because they had a warranty problem, and I changed all the cases over. I could pretty much do a whole crankcase swap in about an hour. Okay, get your gasket on there, get it onto your surface. Just kind of touch it, get it all sat down right. Okay, now I'm going to put the crank in. So over in this press behind me, I'm going to put the crank into the bearing. And I'm simply going to come over here to my press. Okay. I got a piece that goes underneath it to block it up off the press, a couple sleeves I have made. And I'm simply just going to press the press down the end of the crankshaft till it stops. Okay, here you go. That side of the crankshaft is in, ready to go. Now I'm going to go back over here. Make sure it's rotating fine, no problem. Gasket's all there, ready to go. It's in its right depth because I went all the way with it. Now I'm going to take my clutch side, make sure the bearing's moving good, it's all good to go. I'm going to set that over the crankshaft and just get it all positioned under the dowels right. Now I'm going to go back to the press and hold the bottom of the flywheel side, then I'm going to push the clutch side over with this tool that I have made here. So back over here. Put our tool on the bottom. Adjust our press. Make sure it's all lined up with the dowels. Just press down until you can't press anymore. Okay? So now the crankshaft's installed, cases are in. Now I'm going to put the crankcase bolts in. After it's all in like that, and then now I'm going to put the bolts in. 6 bolts. Have the heads of the bolts cleaned and make sure the threads are decent. What I mean by cleaning the head bolts so your tool fits right in them. Put them all in. Don't tighten them with the impact, I just run them in. Okay? Don't ask me what the proper torque is, but it will tell you in the Husky service manual. I've just done so many. I just make sure they're tight. Okay, next one. Number 6. Okay, that's good. Run them in, and now I'll tighten it. Crisscross, like you're torquing a head. Okay, just good hand tight. Second click of my wrist is the torque. Obviously, got to be a good tightness. Okay, now you want to make sure your crankshaft's centered and it's spinning freely. This one isn't quite spinning freely, so now I'm going to get the flywheel nut and put onto the flywheel side, because you usually need to smack that side over to get it right. Should have had that ready to go for you. Okay, there's my flywheel nut. I'm going to thread it onto the thread so I don't damage the threads on the end of the crank, eh? Get it even with the end of the crank and simply give it a tap with the hammer. Okay, look at that. Freed it right up. It's rotating finely. Nice and smooth, ready to go. Take the nut back off. Now I can put my seals in. The seals, there is special tools from Husky, which I have mostly, but most of them I've made myself. Here's the installing tool for the PTO side. Just push the seal down, a little bit of oil on it, and take your drift here, the right punch side for the seal, and give it a tap in. Make sure it's nice and even. Right. kind of to the bottom of this concave orange part. Okay, so now that flywheel side sealing and the PTO side is easy. Just set it on there. Take this jig and just hammer it flat till it touches the case. Okay, that one's in. Now this is the critical part where a lot of guys have had problems with crankshafts leaking on 372s and 365s, especially the Chinese built ones. They're terrible. So on the clutch side you have a sleeve, metal sleeve here where your oiler gear rides on, and it also rides on the seal. So this sleeve is very important to put it back on. But before you do, there's the old magic O-ring. This O-ring seals the bearing to this sleeve, so there's no air sucks through the middle of the crankshaft from the bearing, the inner race of the bearing. So get this O-ring on there, push it down so it's past your seal right up against the bearing. Just take a little tuning screwdriver, push it down evenly on each side. Okay? Some of the Chinese saws come without this in it, so they suck air right away and people think it's all carburation. Take this sleeve now, give it a little bit of oil so it goes around the seal nicely. Okay? I actually like to put glue on the inside of this, just in case that O-ring isn't seating properly. So I put a little bit of this flange sealant, I should say, in there. Just work it around so it's even around on each side. Not a lot, just a little bit. Okay? Now simply push the sleeve over the crank PTO end, turn it as you're doing it, and it seats into the seal. There we go. Bearings are in, seals are in, it's turning fine. This bottom end is ready to go to install everything else onto it. So there you go, that's how the seals and bearings go into 372. It's as fast as that when everything's ready to go, eh? Of course. It takes time though to clean it and have everything prepped to do it though. If you're saw new and sticking the ice for the road, check out the walkersawshop.com online store. Have a great day.